You're watching the Community MMA.
What up? This your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is the Community MMA, aka the TCMMA podcast, and some big news today. If you watch the show, you already know it's going down today. Khamzat Chimaev versus Kamaru Usman. I know you heard by now. I figured I'm gonna wait a little bit, let the initial reaction that I put out in the 1 minute video earlier, right? I let that out. That's the initial reaction. Now I've calmed down a bit. I've settled in. I've settled down. And turns out it is a big fight. It's going to be a much tougher fight for Khamzat, for sure, in a good way. But, you know, I still look at, okay, Khamzat's going to win. Then what happens? What do they say about Usman? Oh, he's finished. This, that, and the third. There's reports that maybe these guys are getting a title shot. Remember, this is all breaking right now. We'll get into those comments in a minute. So that the winner gets the title shot against Sean Strickland. But they said the same thing about Du Plessis, right? They say that to hype the fight up. So I'm not so sure. I mean, Kamaru, who knows how he would do in the middleweight division? He might not be the top 6. I don't know. Because we haven't seen it. But maybe he's top 5. Okay. So look at it like that. Maybe that's a good thing then. But if he gets a title shot, I'm all for it. I'm just not so sure that that's what's going to happen. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that he automatically gets a title shot just because Dana White said it. A few people weighing in. Of course, talking about the middleweight title shot. Kenneth Bruner saying Usman is going to get destroyed at 185 against Khamzat. And that's what I expect Bruner to say. We're on the same page for sure. But I'm just, you know, I expected this, right? Kosa's out with the elbow thing. I expected all this. But I didn't expect it to be Usman. When they say we're going to be excited, I'm thinking more like Dricus, Du Plessis. That would get me excited. But if you're going to start promising things and Khamzat can win this fight, then okay, we're getting somewhere. And you got to really give it up to Usman. You hear me say this in a prediction too, but here in a moment. Usman versus Khamzat prediction. But you got to give it up to Usman. Who else wants to face Khamzat on short notice? Maybe that's the way to go. Because Khamzat does like to get into the head. It's going to be a little tougher on 10 days notice. It'll happen. But you got to give it up to Usman. Incredible. Absolutely incredible taking this fight against Khamzat on short notice. I couldn't have foreseen this coming. I thought it'd be hard for Khamzat to get a short notice fight rather than months and months and months. And maybe guys like it because it's like Khamzat's prepared to fight, but is he prepared for this specific opponent? Would he prepare for Paulo differently than he'll prepare for Kamaru? Maybe, because the takedown defense game is legit. You know, he's had some hiccups against Edwards, but he was winning that first fight, you know, for most of the fight. So it's not like Usman is done, you know. Oh my God, Leon Edwards KO'd Usman! Yeah, it ended up happening like that. Then he lost it. You know, he lost the next fight. So Khamzat wins, then what do they say when he wins? Khamzat Chimaev! You know, what do they say about this guy when he wins? What do they say about Usman? Oh, he's going downhill like Colby beating Tyron Woodley. You know, something along those lines. Boom! Regardless of what Khamzat does. Boom! So I'll believe the middleweight title shot when I see it. When I see it. When the fight is booked, it's going to be party time. But we got to get past Kamaru Usman first. And, you know, there's no sneak peek in the prediction as far as who I'm taking. Right? I mean, when we get there, you know, there's no sneak. I mean, Khamzat's number 1 on the do list, right? Then, of course, you got Islam versus Charles. That's done. So Islam versus Volkanovski. It's just a 3 versus 5 to a 3 versus 6 difference on the dude list. We got Oliveira and Volkanovski 5 and 6. And you might have to just give it to Volkanovski and move him up to 6 or number 5 because this guy's taking the fight on short notice too. That's crazy. There's more benefit there, I think, for Volkanovski. You got to take it. You got to take it when you can take it, or else you might not get it. So good for him getting that, for sure. I mean, getting a rematch against Islam when he performed well in the first fight. I mean, 294 is like stacking up to be ridiculous. And all this information is really still processing. It's still, I'm like, what? Paulo Costa's out. Okay, we knew this was kind of coming. And then, boom, it's Usman before you can even have time to react to it. It's crazy. But the speculation began earlier today and picked up steam as the day went on. And then Dana White, boom, throws it out there. And you got to, because you only got 10 days before the fight. You can't play around with this thing. You got to get the fight booked because you need Khamzat on the card. Please understand what's going on here. You need Khamzat on the card, and Usman is still a big name. So let's waste no time. Let's get into the full detailed preview and prediction. Usman versus Khamzat. In the middleweight division at UFC at 294, you can't believe this. Kamaru Usman 20-3 replaces Paulo Costa against Khamzat Chimaev 12-0. Big time fight. Khamzat 6'2" compared to the 6 foot Usman. He's 29. Usman is 36 years old. Khamzat 7.3 significant strikes per minute to 4.5 for Usman. Now Usman's a switch stance fighter. That'll be interesting. Khamzat fights right-handed. Keep that in mind as well. Now when it comes to the takedown game, Khamzat's near 4 takedowns per 3 rounds. Usman lands 1 each round. But you got to factor in the takedown defense potentially, because Usman 97% takedown defense. But does he really want to keep the fight standing with Khamzat? Got to get into that. Loss of Leon Edwards by KO and majority decision. Before that, he'd be Colby Covington. So there you have it. Khamzat 100% takedown defense. That's impressive as well. Beat Kevin Holland in dominating fashion, first round sub. Gilbert Burns, close fight, decision. He trailed 108 to 119 in significant strikes that had 2 takedowns to none. Submitted Li Jingliang 25-0 significant strikes, and it was that way early on in the career in every fight. And you already know me. Listen, much tougher fight for Khamzat. Let's not get it twisted. Kamaru Usman, you got to give him respect for taking this fight. No doubt about it. On short notice, who does that against Khamzat? Kamaru Usman is a warrior. Let's not get it twisted. He's got that big punch power. Khamzat's got to be careful, but Khamzat will still win this fight with precision to move to 13-0 on significant strikes. Will end up finishing Usman sometime in the 2nd or 3rd round, but he's got to be careful. But the middleweight division is his territory here at UFC 294. And it can't be overstated with Usman taking this fight. I mean, that's the big story, that Usman takes the fight. Maybe something happened in negotiations and now he's got more leverage because Costa's out and he gets what he wants for the fight. I don't know how all that works on the inner workings, but for some reason, Usman takes his fight on 10 days' notice. And you just have to think about that for a minute. Think about how good Khamzat is and who he is and how he's running through people right now. And who else wanted to fight him in the middleweight division? That's another thing you want to ask. And Usman stepping in the last minute and going up, because you know Khamzat is going to be about 5 to 10 pounds bigger and stronger in this fight. You know, because he's cutting down from 195 to 185 and he's right back up before the fight. Usman's probably walking around 185, possibly can get to 190, but it's hard, you know. I don't know, man. I just think Usman's in for it in this fight. I just think he's in for it. And let's also get real quick, let's get to Islam versus Volkanovski so we can break this fight card down. 294, Islam versus Volkanovski 2. This fight got released just yesterday. So back-to-back days, main event and co-main event switched up. It's crazy. And it might even be better. That's the wild thing about it. In the lightweight division at UFC 294, this is your new main event. Islam Makhachev will now take on Alexander Volkanovski. Charles Oliveira is out. Makhachev 24-1, Volkanovski 26-2. Both guys with ridiculous records, and this will be the rematch. And some people thought Volkanovski won the first fight, so let's get into it. Makhachev, 4 inches taller at 5'10". He's 31. Volkanovski, 35. The age shouldn't have an effect on this fight. Makhachev fights left-handed. Volkanovski stands right-handed. Now, Volkanovski is very active, and that's what caused problems for Makhachev in the first fight. And he can defend takedowns or go to the ground. But in terms of activity, Volkanovski 6.3 significant strikes per minute to 2.4 for Makhachev. Makhachev doubles up Volkanovski in takedowns, 3.2 over the course of 3 rounds. So that's like 1 every round. Volkanovski lands like 1 every other round. Makhachev 90% takedown defense. Alexander Volkanovski obviously has a high takedown defense of his own. When you look into it, this was what makes for an interesting fight. Volkanovski 70%, so that's slightly above average. But when he goes to the ground, he can get back up. So we know that these guys have had other fights, but in the last fight they fought each other. So let's break that down. It was 70-57 in favor of Volkanovski in significant strikes. Right? So Volkanovski led there. Islam Makhachev had 4 takedowns to none, but Volkanovski was able to get up. Now, in a lot of other fights, when a guy leads in significant strikes, this doesn't seem like the takedowns are too much of a big deal, especially if the fighter can get up. So really, Makhachev just dominated 1, maybe 2 rounds on the takedowns, but in terms of the striking, Volkanovski led in that area but lost the fight by decision. So we get the rematch. Now, Makhachev was on a major tear before that. He still is. He's won like 12 or 13 straight over Charles Oliveira, Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, and so on. Volkanovski has fought since that fight, beating Yair Rodriguez, 7 takedowns, 66-40 in significant strikes. So both fighters are used to doing what they got to do to win. Land takedowns, control the fight. It's a little bit tougher for Volkanovski to do than it is for Makhachev. But in this rematch, both guys are going to be better. Volkanovski is going to be more prepared. He may try to land some takedowns. He may try to take more chances in the stand-up game. Makhachev is going to be better because he took Volkanovski down and Volkanovski got back up. He's not able to match Volkanovski in significant strikes, so it just makes for a very interesting fight. But I can't go against Islam Makhachev. I mean, Volkanovski can come up here and steal the belt. Absolutely possible. But Islam Makhachev is still the better fighter at the lightweight level, at 155 pounds. So I'd like him to win another decision. This is going to be another long fight. Look for Makhachev to sneak out a victory the way he did in the first fight. And we shouldn't be mad because this is a tough opponent in the featherweight champion, Alexander Volkanovski. But Makhachev wins almost the same way to move to 25-1, lightweight division, UFC 294. Yeah, that's the thing, is I just see them both getting better in this fight. Like the precision, the accuracy, the patience is going to be even on a much higher level in this fight. Because Islam now has to respect Volkanovski in a different way than he did coming in. And Volkanovski is going to have a little edge too because he realizes he can go toe-to-toe with Islam, so he might press more. So the strategy involved in this fight is ridiculous. And it's probably better than the Oliveira fight. It's not that Oliveira can't win, but I think a lot of people expected him to lose. May not have been exciting unless he pulled it off. And this is just more exciting because this is champ versus champ. You know what I mean? So when you look at it like that, champ versus champ, like, and with the way the first fight went, it's just forget about it. Isaiah Knowles saying in the chat, huge props to Dana and the UFC for pulling this together like this. Yeah. You got to give props to the UFC on this one for pulling it together for sure. You know. Boer saying they get me mad when they say Gilbert dropped Khamzat, as if Gilbert didn't drop Usman as well. Boer's hate is crazy. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's going to only get stronger because people are going to think that Usman. This is the thing with both fights. Is people are going to think that there's more likely of a chance of Usman beating Khamzat than Costa. I mean, I think Khamzat would have dropped Costa, no doubt, no question. Same here, but a little tougher. And then more people think Volkanovski's going to beat Islam than Oliveira. We should get some polls on that to see, but you know, at the end of the day, I think I'd be right on that one. And therefore, immediately more interest in this card. Then you got Aliskerov on the card and others. Like, it's just going to be a ridiculous card. And yeah, great job to the UFC for pulling this together. Because it could have went sideways quick. Like, imagine if Paulo Costa couldn't fight and they couldn't get a fight for Khamzat and he's out. I mean, it could have went sideways quick and that would have been bad for him. So who knows what Usman got for this fight, but he definitely had leverage. I don't believe for a minute he just stepped in to the fight. I'm sure the UFC had to scramble to get this thing done. And it's more important to do what you got to do now to keep the card alive and keep Khamzat and Islam on the card. And they did. And they pulled it together for 2 fights. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Great job, UFC. We have nothing bad to say about you today. That's, today. But it's 99% good, right? I mean, that's why we're here. We like the sport. We love it. And today was one of those days where you got to love it because it's like the information is coming out fast. And then you get the immediate shock of what's going to happen, like I did earlier. And then you kind of settle down and you're like, okay, let me think about this. And then Dana White saying there's potential title fight. I don't know if I believe that, but okay, well, let's see what's going on here. And then you start to settle down and say, okay, now that if Khamzat wins, we got Dana White on record. Hopefully, I haven't seen it. This is what people are saying. So take that with a grain of salt. But now we can start saying, hey, he's ready for the title. This is what you said. I don't know that it helps Khamzat's ranking in the middleweight division at all by beating Kamaru Usman because neither are ranked, so it's a tricky thing. It'll get him ranked, but how high? Like top 10? And then, he's promised a title fight, so I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out. I mean, yeah, Usman's number 1 at welterweight, but how does that work into the middleweight division? If he's 1 in the welterweight, what's his ranking in the middleweight? We don't know. 5 to 10? I don't think he's beating all those guys up there. I think Adesanya beats him. I think Jared Cannonier probably beats him. Maybe. Marvin Vettori would be a good fight. So I don't know. I don't know. And maybe Usman's 2 or 3 because the middleweight division isn't that deep. It's just hard to say. It's hard to say. So what does this do for Khamzat when he wins? Notice I didn't say if. I said when he wins. He's going to win this fight. He's going to win this fight. But listen, as a fan, because it's a fight at the end of the day, I'm more nervous about Usman than I am Costa. I mean, why not? You got to be, I think. Just because Costa would just get punched and he would crumble. Usman, if he runs through Usman, which is very possible, put this man in a title fight right now and just give him both the belts. And remember what I say every time. When Khamzat wins, watch how quickly they diminish Kamaru Usman. And he falls from grace real quickly. That's why I cannot believe he took this fight on 10 days' notice, on short notice. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. Because when he loses to Khamzat, they're going to start bashing the guys that he beat or raising up Gilbert Burns like he's the greatest gift to MMA now because he almost beat Khamzat. You see what I'm saying? When he beats Usman, they're going to break down Usman and tell you how Usman wasn't that good and Khamzat's not as good as we think. And none of that's going to change. Now, listen, we're going to celebrate and we're going to be excited when he finishes Usman. Please believe it. But I'm just telling you to be ready for all the backlash of what's to come when he does beat him. That's the thing. Ori Cole, I think. I can't count Usman out 100% per se, but I just can't see Khamzat completely ragdolling Usman. And yeah, and that's what, and that's the mentality I'm in too. Oh, not completely not ragdolling Usman. Yeah, in either way. But I think it's harder to see him doing that against Usman than it is against. I think with Costa, like I was really confident that he's just gonna run through Costa like quickly, like fast. And it's not to say he won't do that to Usman, but I can't say that I'm as confident that it'll be that easy of a fight. I really thought with Costa he was just gonna run through him. Now I'm like, okay, it's Usman, the great, right? He just got beat by a guy that's has a lot of momentum right now and is fighting really well in Leon Edwards, but it's still Usman. Not as good as 2-3 years ago, Usman, but still really good. So, you know, that's something that I got to take into consideration when watching this fight. That's how it's going to feel. I'm going to be the blood's going to be pumping a little bit more for this fight than it would have been Costa, because I just figured Costa was a assured victory, and I still think this is too. But there's a little more nerves here because it's still Kamaru Usman. Please believe it. It's still Kamaru Usman. So I'm even more excited about the fight now than I was before with both of them. And I like Charles Oliveira. And I would have liked Khamzat to see Khamzat just run through Costa. But if this gets him a title fight quicker, then hey, it doesn't matter who it is. Let's get ready to rumble. That's how I feel. And it's rumble time. Please believe it. Let's get to it. I can't wait. 10 days away. For now, this your boy Chris Cross. Yes, sir. I'm ready to go. Khamzat Chimaev. All the way. 3 belts, 2 belts, something like that.